On the afternoon of March 6, 1945, as fighting raged through the ruins of Cologne, Feldwebel Karl Hoffmann pressed his eye against the cracked periscope of his Panther tank. The lens had splintered into a web of fractures from earlier impacts, but he could still make out a shape advancing through the rebel-clogged street. At first, he thought it must be another Sherman. He had memorized every contour of American armor over 3 years of war. He knew the tall profile of the M4, the thin armor of the Stuart light tanks, and even the bulky jumbo Shermans whose added armor still left them helpless against German heavy guns. But this new silhouette unsettled him. "That is no Sherman," he murmured into the intercom, the tremor in his voice startling his crew. What he saw through the ruined optic was unlike anything in the German recognition charts. A long, thick gun barrel extending from a sloped, low-slung hull and a turret far larger than anything the Americans were known to field. In 18 seconds, Hoffmann and his crew would learn the truth, that the U.S. had finally deployed a tank capable of killing them at any distance. Another Panther from Panzer Brigade 106, commanded by Wilhelm Bartelborth, had already discovered this new menace minutes earlier. His crew never lived long enough to describe what destroyed them. The weapon was the M26 Pershing, armed with the 90mm M3 gun. In that earlier exchange, the Pershing fired first. Its armor-piercing round screamed across the short 120-meter gap and hit the Panther's turret face with enough force to split the thick frontal armor before detonating inside the crew compartment. By spring 1945, the equations that once defined German battlefield superiority were being rewritten, no longer shaped by doctrine or courage, but by production numbers, industrial capacity, and technological acceleration.
For more than 2 years, German heavy tanks had dominated the battlefield. When the first Tigers rolled out near Leningrad in 1942, their appearance seemed to violate the laws of armored warfare. A Tiger's 88mm gun could kill Allied tanks at distances far beyond the reach of American or British guns, and up close, their 100 to 120mm frontal armor looked almost invulnerable. Crews operating these machines felt nearly immortal. The psychological high was as important as the mechanical edge. American tankers, by contrast, developed a chronic fear of Tigers, so much so that they often reported seeing them even when none were present. Meanwhile, German crews chalked kill tallies on their barrels like fighter pilots, convinced of their own indestructibility. Their confidence was reinforced by battles like the famed engagement at Villers-Bocage in June 1944, when Michael Wittmann's Tiger destroyed an entire armored column in minutes. But while German tank crews clung to their image of superiority, American engineers and factories had already begun the process of overturning it. As early as late 1942, the U.S. Army had realized that the M4 Sherman, the mainstay of American armor, was rapidly becoming obsolete. It had been designed for a different war, one in which it faced only older Panzer III and IV models. In Italy and Normandy, Shermans encountered Tigers and Panthers whose armor and guns completely outclassed them. Out of this realization grew the T-26 program, a crash industrial effort spread across more than a dozen major contractors and tens of thousands of workers. The goal was simple: create a tank that could meet Germany's best on equal terms or surpass them.
The resulting vehicle, the M26 Pershing, was a heavy tank in all but name. Its most formidable feature was its 90mm M3 gun, derived from the U.S. 90mm anti-aircraft system. This weapon fired a 24-pound armor-piercing shell at extremely high velocity. The standard round could penetrate a Tiger's frontal armor at typical combat ranges. The high-velocity HVAP round, with its tungsten carbide core, could pierce even the King Tiger's colossal armor. The development and shipment of the Pershing were conducted in near total secrecy. Workers were told they were building an improved Sherman. Components were manufactured separately so that no factory had the full picture. When the first 20 Pershings were shipped on January 15, 1945, they were listed as maintenance equipment and concealed beneath tarps. Only carefully selected crews trained in isolation at Fort Knox knew the truth. The tanks disembarked at Antwerp late in January and were quietly transferred to the 3rd Armored Division. Each Pershing was assigned sparingly, one per task force, and disguised among regular Sherman units. They were to be used only against German heavy armor. Germany, for its part, had no idea these tanks existed. The first Pershing combat loss, a tank named Fireball, occurred on February 26th when it was ambushed and hit by a Tiger at close range. Yet even this setback only underscored American resilience. The vehicle was repaired and back in action within days.
Rumors began to circulate among German crews about a mysterious American tank with a long gun and unusually heavy armor. A Panther crew reported being destroyed from 1,800 meters by an unseen enemy. No German commander believed the Americans were capable of designing or fielding a heavy tank. They assumed the Americans were chained to their quantity over quality philosophy forever. Those illusions died in Cologne. The battle near the cathedral was one of the most filmed and documented tank duels of the war. Cameraman Jim Bates captured the moment a Pershing, nicknamed Eagle 7, faced off with Bartleborth's Panther. The Panther's first shot struck the Pershing, but deflected harmlessly, a result Bartleborth could hardly comprehend. Moments later, the Pershing returned fire and destroyed the Panther with its first shot. Another German tank nearby attempted to engage, but was also knocked out almost immediately. This brief exchange sent shockwaves through the Wehrmacht. German headquarters demanded urgent reports on any new American heavy tanks. The scattered descriptions, a Sherman with a longer gun, a tank with unexpectedly thick armor, a weapon larger than 75 millimeters, only deepened the confusion. Crews began retreating at the first sign of American armor, uncertain whether they faced harmless Shermans or the deadly new Pershings. German training schools had no information on the vehicle. Their entire tactical doctrine depended on the assumption that American guns could not penetrate German heavy armor frontally. This assumption was now obsolete. Only about 20 Pershings saw combat before Germany surrendered, but the psychological effect they produced was disproportionate to their number. German units began abandoning tanks that suffered even minor mechanical problems, vehicles they would have repaired in earlier stages of the war. Recovery teams increasingly found intact Panthers and Tigers left behind due to fear of encountering Pershings.